Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is Steve Wright, the president and general manager of the Jay Peak Resort. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks, Scotty. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You haven't been on for quite some time. Throughout the years, you've been a frequent flyer, and so I figured it was about time.
Yeah, I haven't been on since the receivership, since that all happened. So it's good to be back. Good to see you again.
So, there's been a series of things going on in the last year. The mountain has been sold, and then now there's probably, I don't know if you're having a lack of snow, but the rest of the Northeast Kingdom is. And then you have the eclipse coming up. So which one do you want to tackle first?
Well, I mean, the snow is always something that's close to the top of our minds here. We've gotten our fair share, over 230 inches or so, but unfortunately, it's been followed by rain just about every time it lands, so it doesn't stick around very long. Right now, we're seeing a little bit of warm weather, but the temps are supposed to drop again in another week or so. So as we get into the last 2 operating months of the season, it can be some of the snowiest periods for us, and we've got our eyes on the weather forecast, hoping it'll turn.
So without the J cloud, without the what has been called the J cloud, things could actually be worse for you then.
Yeah, certainly. We still at this point have received more natural snow than any resort in Eastern North America, so we're plenty thankful for what the cloud's been able to provide thus far. But a couple of months of really strong, serious snowmaking that just finished up a little while ago. Like I said, we've still got a few tricks up our sleeves, and I'm sure the cloud does too, in terms of being able to bring us some more natural snow as we head into the spring. Yeah,
because it really is. I know the people who don't like snow are celebrating, but March is, I think, historically can be one of the snowier months. So the celebration might be a bit early for those people.
Yeah, if they're celebrating a lack of snow, just keep them away from me. I don't want to see them.
Right. Okay. How's the new ownership going?
Going well. We were purchased by Pacific Group, a little more than a year ago, almost 2 years now, and they have been great. They've been a great operating company. They've let, as they do all their resorts, they let Jay Peak sort of run autonomously. We continue to do our thing here as we've always done. They've been great partners to work with, and what appears to be the first year was a tremendous financial success for all of us, and it's trending in that direction again this year.
Right. Is there any big plans do they have big plans for the mountain, or are you just kind of letting it be and working with what you have?
Well, I think the answer to that is both, really. I mean, from an operating mentality, we're continuing to run the place as we always have, sort of with the employees in mind and the guests in mind. But in terms of build out, as you know, we went through $500 million worth of growth in about in the previous decade leading up to them buying the place. So there's an awful lot here that is relatively new, but there are some on-mountain improvements that they are focused on. They want to improve snowmaking. They want to update our lift system, and they want to make sure that the campus, which is a big sprawling campus now, as you know, they want to make sure that it's kept up to date with improvements as they become necessary, as we get further and further away from when they were integrated. We're looking at replacing the Bonaventure chair shortly, and I'm in conversations with all of the lift manufacturers, sort of as we speak, trying to bring that to fruition.
You talked about the expansion in the last, I don't know, what is it, 10, 15 or so years, that's probably also saving the mountain in the sense of like the water park and the skating rink and that, to make it into a 4-season or at least a strong 3-season resort and not solely relying on the on the snow.
Yeah, for sure. And that was the intent originally, was to be able to, extend our season so we could continue to keep people employed over a longer stretch and not have these huge dips and swings in laying people off and then bringing them back on again. The summer period for us, which summer fall we consider from May to about U.S. Thanksgiving, has turned into an important time of year for us in terms of driving revenue through golf and hockey tournaments and conferences and weddings. Those segments of our business have really grown up, and it's part of our main focus is continuing to drive business into those time periods and to be as intelligent with operating the resort as we can during those time periods to make sure that we take that revenue to the bottom line.
Since almost the beginning of the history of JP, there's particularly with Walter Foger. Walter wanted to develop the West Bowl, and that has always been a dream throughout the years of most of the owners and the general managers. Do you any talk about that?
No, this general manager is not as interested in that as the other general managers was. I think what we did, which hadn't been done before, is we put a real pencil to real paper and figured out what it was going to cost us to do that and what the potential financial upside and return on that initial investment would be and how long it would take it to show a return. And the numbers just aren't there. I know it would be nice to add some of that intermediate level south facing or east facing slopes and skiing access, but the reality of it is financially it doesn't make a lot of sense.
That doesn't surprise me that you came up with it, because I'm not a numbers person and I'm not in the ski industry. And I often thought of that, because with that added terrain, you are certainly going to have to increase the number of users. And then we also live in a time where you probably run into a lot more environmental issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a whole host of environmental issues before we even get to the topic of whether or not it throws a return. And, I would admit very freely and quickly that I'm not much of a visionary, but I am a practical operator. And there is no scenario that shows that there is a return against that. I mean, you open up that terrain, you're talking about additional lifts, you're talking about additional snowmaking, you're talking about additional infrastructure that has to be in place before you even put that in. And then you're talking about trying to figure out a way to grow the employee base, which, as we know, not only is there a lack of man and woman power, but there's no place to sleep them. And there's very few places to take care of their children. So there's an infrastructure that needs to be in place before one sets off on trying to realize a vision like that.
And I think you hinted at it too, is, although you've had a lot of work done at the mountain, there's also upkeep, especially the way I look at it is you had so much work done all at once. That could mean if you don't stay on top of things, you might have a whole lot of upkeep come all at once, renovations.
Yeah, that's what I said before. I mean, the campus now is so big and so wide that it requires an owner operator to make sure that that infrastructure is constantly being updated and maintained. Because if you don't, a bill comes due 5-10 years down the road that's awfully expensive. And we have, as you look at the entire experience here at Jay, we are much more concerned with perfecting the experience that we have than growing too big and too fast, adding to that particular burden.
How's your staffing doing? Because a lot of the world, or at least the United States and Vermont, they struggle. People are struggling at finding employees. How are you doing on that?
We're great. This is the best hiring year that we've ever had here at Jay, and I think it has to do with, when PGRI came in, we moved the minimum wage for JPEAK employees up to more than $17 an hour. We have taken inventory out of our sort of warm bed inventory that we usually rent to guests and given it over to create employee housing. We've turned our daycare, which used to be a profit center for us, has turned into a cost center because most of the spaces are given over to employees and their kids for, $2 or $3 an hour. So we're just barely making turning 4 quarters into $1 there. But without that asset, we would lose a certain index of our employees because childcare in the state of Vermont is so difficult to attach to.
I've got to give a shout out to Tommy Howell, though. He seems to be your unofficial PR man. He's as you know, he's a retired state trooper. And I think he wishes he'd found you guys years later, because he seems to be having a lot of good times. And he's constantly promoting about his love for the mountain and the people.
No, he's a good soldier. He's got a lot of good experience that he brought with him through his days working in law enforcement. And he runs security for us here, as well as, risk. And he is actually in charge of the child care program as well, because he misses the days when he was changing dirty diapers. So we put him on that plan as well.
I think Tom told me, though, which I don't know if that could be true, but I know he has 4 children, and I think he told me he once had all 4 in diapers all at once.
Yeah.
And I can imagine he probably misses those days. So
yeah. No, he's good soldier.
Then there's something else coming up that you and I have never seen before, at least in Vermont, and will probably won't see again, is a total eclipse of the sun on April 8th. And you have, you're one of the, I swear you're one of the few businesses up here that I think had the vision for it, because I think some of the businesses now are just getting on board with this whole eclipse thing. And I've written about it at great length, or at least about the eclipse of 32 and comparing it to today. How did you get on board so early?
Well, I had a friend that runs a ski resort out in Idaho who had mentioned to me, 4 years ago, they went through that and said, just be ready for this, because on paper, it might not square that there are going to be, thousands of people heading in your direction, but believe me, they will be. And, right around that time, we started to get phone calls about making reservations 4 years in advance. So we took our first reservation for the eclipse back in 2019, before the pandemic. So that keyed us into the fact that we needed to be thoughtful about what we were going to do if there was that much interest that far away off in the past. So we started to plan in detail more than a year ago for this, and we've got commemorative posters and glasses and things like that. We've got programming where we're taking 2 tram loads of people up to the peak where they can watch it up at the peak. We have a wedding here up at the peak that day, and we've got a Pink Floyd cover band that's going to play the Dark Side of the Moon album in its entirety outside in front of the tram, beginning right as the path to totality, so to speak, begins. So there's going to be a lot going on up here, and we've been working with the state, trying to make sure that the roads both to and from the mountain are managed well, and they're going to be a big help with that as well.
They're calling this a once in a lifetime event, but that's not really true, because I've actually interviewed a couple people who remember the last total eclipse here. It was 1932. And one of them is one of your employees. Well, I'm not sure if she's your employee more, but she was. But Teresa Kuchu of Westfield, Kucher there.
Kucher.
I interviewed her, and she is one of the few Vermonters who can say this is not a once in a lifetime event. This is a twice in a lifetime event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a twice in a lifetime event that the eclipse is actually happening. What might be once is how close the path of totality runs to J peak. We are at 3 minutes and 35 seconds of eclipse, which is number one in terms of anywhere in the country to experience this.
Right.
So that and St. Albans, I believe St. Albans is right square smack in the middle of that too. So whether it's once in a lifetime or twice in a lifetime or whatever the case may be, it's likely to be the only time in a lifetime for many of us. So we're going to certainly take advantage of it.
I have totally changed my life around, including my trip overseas, just to make sure I'm in Vermont
for 3 minutes.
So that's, I've written so much over the years about the 32 eclipse, including collecting its oral history, that I figured no matter what, I needed to be in Vermont, and I'm going to sure hope it doesn't rain. The 32 eclipse, it wasn't a washout, but it was touch and go. People in Newport saw a great view of the eclipse. People in Derby were totally clouded out. That's how close things were. So I'm going to be back. I'm going to be in Vermont and not on the other side of the world, just for a few days. Then I'll leave to go to the other side of the world.
Well, Vermont we'll be lucky to have you here for it, Scott. It'll be good to have you back for the eclipse.
I live, as you probably know, I still am a Vermont resident, but while some people winter in Florida or Arizona, I now pretty much winter in Marquette, Michigan, which is snowier than Vermont. Not quite as cold, but then my other world is in the Philippines. So I live between the three places. Not much ski. By the way, Steve, there's not much need for a ski mountain manager in the Philippines. So
no.
If you ever think about going there looking for a mountain job, it's not going to probably be skiing.
Nope, I can't imagine that it would be.
Yeah. So what else is coming up at the mountain?
We've got a busy summer ahead. We've got 50 or 60 weddings over the course of May through October. We've got a 4 or 5 event concert series. We've got a bunch of conferences, including the Harley-Davidson annual meeting, their U.S. annual meeting, which is going to be a huge event up here, kind of like Porsche and what they were back in 2016. And a bunch of other pieces of hockey business. We've got a bunch of kids from Nova Scotia that come in every summer in July and the first week of August. Probably 1,000 kids. They'll be coming back, so it's going to be a busy summer.
And the Boston Bruins they haven't decided to come to town and put on an exposition or something since their founder, Charles Adams, was from Newport Center.
No, not that I know of.
Yeah. So what do you predict? What's your prediction for the rest of the winter?
I think that the next 2 weeks are going to be warm. You get out into predicting any further than that, it's sort of a fool's errand. I would imagine that based off of the way history works, that we've got another storm or two left in us, and certainly some more cold weather. But we go about 7 or 10 days out. That's as much of the future as we're willing to commit to.
I guess maybe then it must be the weather pattern, because I know the weather pattern isn't always from over here in Michigan to Vermont, but like yesterday, it was probably in the 50s. Mm-hmm. And this morning, it's probably, without looking at a thermometer, probably 15 degrees, heavy wind, and a lot of, a good amount of snow coming down. So hopefully that blows over your way. I know there will be the anti-snow people They won't like me saying it, but it is Vermont. And over here, we've had a severe lack of snow. I mean, they're at historic proportions here, and it's devastating the snowmobile industry. There's really no, like, we've had less snow than you, and this is usually quite a bit snowier.
Yeah.
This is, I'd like to think we're living through just historic times and things are going to go back to normal. But after the last couple of winters, I'm not quite so sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's also groups of people, along with those that don't like winter, who maybe don't believe that the climate is changing or that this is all normal. I don't know that I hold that same theory, and I don't know that there's much evidence to support their claims that this too shall pass, because I have a strange feeling that it won't.
Yeah, well, if you know, over the years, I've interviewed a lot of sugar makers, a lot of old sugar makers who are now gone. And, you know, whether it's man-made or natural or whatever you want to call it, there's no doubt that the climate is shifting, because the sugar making is getting earlier and earlier every year.
Yeah.
You know, some of it's technology, but on the other hand, a lot of it's the weather pattern.
Yeah, it's absolutely pulling forward. If you ask any sugar maker over the last 10 years, you know, it runs earlier and earlier. And if that's indicative of a changing climate, then I think the sugar makers will certainly support the notion that the climate is changing.
Right. So we only have just a few more minutes. Anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, just good to see your face again. I'm glad that you're still going on air with this stuff, Scott. It's good to be part of it, and I'm glad that Vermonters up in this area still having an opportunity through your show and through your channels to tell good Northeast Kingdom related stories.
And to tell you the truth, now that I've traveled and I don't own, I don't settle so much in one place, it actually gives me more time to actually put out really good work, if I may say so myself. But I, like you though, I'm not a one-man show. I couldn't do it without my little crew. And this gives me time, because there is going to be a chapter. You know, I'm not living in retirement. I am just, after Penny passed, I decided, okay, let's live life a little different. And I will be settling back down. But for now, I'm just out recording history. I'm writing, and I love what I do, but I also appreciate the support JP has had for me for the last 20-something years.
Well, I'm glad things are going well your way, and we'll continue to support you. I mean, you're a good local businessman, a local media channel, and you tell good stories about the part of the world that we all love. So it's good to be a part of it.
All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up, and I guess go pray for snow. Go talk to the great cloud and the great J cloud, and see what you can get it to do for you.
We'll squeeze every bit out of it that we can, my friend.
All right. Hey, thanks for coming on. It was good seeing you. Good talking with you. And I'll be back. And I suspect I'll be at the mountain.
Good. Come see us. Take care, Scott.
All right. Thanks. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.